What's up, PorkFest? How's everybody doing? All right, thanks for coming to my 10 o'clock talk. My first PorkFest that I've ever been to. I've been trying to come for the last 4 years, and they're like, yeah, we'll bring you out as a speaker, but you're gonna speak at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Enjoy. It's pretty brutal, but you know, I decided not to have the drinks last night and still stayed up till 4 a.m. because you guys just like to party, so I appreciate it. So as he said, I'm the vice chair of the Libertarian National Committee. I've ran for chair twice of the Libertarian National Committee. In 2018, I ran against Nicholas Sarwark. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Nicholas Sarwark. Yeah, that was my thoughts too. So a little backstory on me. I'm gonna take a seat. It's been a late night. Little backstory on me. I was just a maintenance guy in 2017, and I went to the Washington State Libertarian Convention, where they made me a regional rep because I was the only one that showed up from the Washington State Region 5, and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was a Rothbard guy. I'd like to say that Ron Paul woke me up, Rothbard radicalized me, and Nicholas Sarwark pissed me off enough to get involved. So I was just a maintenance guy. I went to a state convention in Washington because I started kind of watching the Libertarian Party in 2016, 2015. And I was the only one that showed up from my region. They made me a region rep. And I was tasked with learning how to build county affiliates in my region. It was no easy feat in southern Washington. I was right across the river from Portland, Oregon. If you're familiar with Portland, Oregon, it is pretty much the Antifa capital hub of the country. They got to know me pretty well. I'd drive down the waterfront and they'd start throwing eggs at my car and shit. I used to tell them capitalism will win and stuff. You know, they didn't like me very much, but it was fun. And he got Voodoo Donuts at the end. So I started building affiliates down there. And around this time, I was actually a Nick Sarwark fan. I saw Nick as kind of this figure that was like polarizing, and he was going after the Republicans and the Democrats and saying, you know, your tears are delicious and your parties will die. And I'm a little edgy. If you follow me, you know I'm a little edgy. So I was like, yeah, that's some edgy messaging. I like that. And around this time, he started attacking, you know, Dr. Ron Paul and Eric July and Tom Woods and Dave Smith and all these, you know, to me, great thinkers and people that had bigger platforms than the Libertarian Party did. And so I, in all my infinite wisdom, started calling all these big name libertarians saying, hey man, you guys gotta run for chair against this guy. He sucks, you know, he's not good. He is hurting our cause. And everybody's like, man, you're crazy, dude. You're crazy. He's the most popular chair the Libertarian Party's ever had. You know, they had the best year they've ever had in 2016 with Gary Johnson and Bill Weld. And I was like, you know, at the time I was just a publication guy. I had a little publication called Think Liberty, if you're familiar. It was a really nice publication back then, founded with me and 3 of my friends, and kind of took off. So I was like, you know what? I'm kind of crazy. I'll do it. So I put out an intent to run statement in 2017. Thinking it would just be a challenge to the regime of the Libertarian Party. I had no idea that it would take off the way it was. I had no idea that there was this large set of libertarians in the country that were just fed up with the Libertarian Party in general, embarrassing us and just, you know. And so I ended up traveling to 25 states that year. I spoke behind Dr. Ron Paul at the Omaha Roads to Freedom Convention in Nebraska. I got to work on ballot access issues in Ohio. I put together a ballot access fundraiser in Alabama that I traveled to and hosted. And, you know, you guys got to remember, I was just a maintenance man, right? I'd never done any public speaking. I did a couple of open mics, stand-up comedy, you know, so I was like, well, I'll just imagine the audience naked like I used to and I'll be okay. So I carried this little speech around with me in my pocket that I wrote out, and I put it up on the podium and my hands would be shaking. And, you know, I'm running against a 2-term incumbent, trial lawyer, business owner, you know, this very respected man in the Libertarian Party. But I lost that campaign, if you can believe it. And it was not close. I got about 33% of the vote. But that was as a no-name libertarian maintenance man that no one knew from the West Coast. And so at that same convention, I ended up becoming an at-large representative on the Libertarian National Committee. And let me tell you, when I say I was an island, man. I couldn't make motions. If I put a motion to the board, it automatically got shut down. It wouldn't have mattered if it was beneficial to the Libertarian Party or not. They hated me because I represented a sect of the Libertarian Party that came for the king. And if you're gonna come for the king, you gotta kill the king. So I decided to set out and do kind of my own work, even though I was part of this board that was supposed to work together. And the board spent 2 years fighting each other, fighting other libertarians in the movement. They did nothing, absolutely nothing. And so in 2020, I was looking around at the candidate field for chair again, and I'm going, I don't think anybody's gonna step up and do this. So I decided to run again. I got a little bit more exposure. I've been around the country. The libertarians know me. And Nicholas Sarwark had kind of shown his ass over the last year. We started going into convention time. It was during COVID. He was really like pro-COVID regime, which is just horrendous to me. He was fighting to shut down our national convention, make it all online. And I'm like, we're the one party that's going to stand up against this shit, and we're going to just kowtow to the regime? No thanks. So a lot of libertarians had seen him for years. He knew that he wouldn't have the support going into national convention. So he decided that he was gonna support Joe Bishop Henchman. And I'll tell you, I only lost to Joe Bishop Henchman by 100 votes, man. It was so close. It was very, very close. And immediately they went on the offensive against any of the Mises-style libertarian affiliates. And one of those affiliates was here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire is brash and they're unapologetic, and they're going to tell you like they think it is, and they might say some things that you don't agree with or you're not happy about, but they're a state affiliate and they have autonomy and they can do what they want. It's not our place as a national committee to take that power away from their state. It's our duty to ask them how we can help, and that's it. And so it became a fight again, man. And this time I wasn't an island. I had Karen Ann Harlos, who was way more aggressive than she was in the term before, and she was willing to fight for you guys to the point of she knew she would be removed from the board if she fought for New Hampshire and fought for Delaware and fought for Massachusetts, and she did it anyways, and they removed her anyways. So I wasn't an island. I had support on the board, but it still wasn't enough, But during this whole time, the Mises Caucus is working their ass off. They're organizing all these state affiliates, and we're going to give a challenge to the status quo, And we walked into this convention this year, man, and you could feel the energy, man. We knew we had 60% of the room, and we watched the Nick Sarwark wing walk out of the room and give up. And so now we want to talk about the future of the Libertarian Party. The Libertarian Party has been a laughable entity in this country for a long time. I mean, there's been some good aspects of the party, right? They challenge the status quo on a lot of things, but not some other things, because they want to be invited to the DC champagne parties. They don't really want to offend people like John Brennan, right? They just want to get into the good graces of them so they can be at the parties and take the power and feel, powerful. And we know as libertarians that these people, they are never going to like us, because we are fighting their entire kingdom. We're fighting imperialism and the warfare state. We're fighting the Federal Reserve. We're fighting taxation. These are all the things that prop them up, that give them their power. It doesn't matter what we do. We are never going to be the Republicans who smoke weed. It's never going to happen. We're always going to be seen as domestic terrorists to these people, because domestic to them means their own power. It doesn't mean we, the people, to them. And so we came in with the idea that, hey, man, we're going to be unapologetic. We're not going to be cowards. We're going to say the things that we feel. We're going to say the things that we know are philosophically consistent. And we're going to fight the state. And we won in our party. But now the real fight comes. And Maj Touré at the National Convention had quite possibly the most eye-opening speech I've ever heard in my life. He said simply, now the real work begins. And I don't believe that you guys are ready to do the work. But I want to come back in 2 years and be proven wrong. But to do that, you're going to have to buy a bulletproof vest. Because when we start actually becoming a force in this country, it's not going to be easy on us. And if you're a figure in that movement, if you're a nameable face, I mean, look what they are doing to the evil insurrectionists from January 6th. These are regular people that showed up to DC to protest, sitting in jail without bail. What do you think they're going to do to people that actually challenge their political movement and are just on a guided rope tour of the Capitol? It's going to be ugly. They're going to drag you down. There may be attempts on your life. I don't know. But it's going to be really, really bad. So we now are in a position where we're no longer fighting each other in our party. And that's a beautiful thing because we have the opportunity to focus outward. And I don't know that this party since 1988 has had that opportunity. You know, we had the Ron Paul campaign in 1988. They had the Cato Mises split. It's always been a fight. It's always been a fight on the board. We've never had a cohesive Libertarian National Committee that is ready to come together and work on the things that they need to come together on. And so, you know, Angela and I were kind of split on who we wanted to be the vice chair. Obviously, if you followed it, she wanted someone else. She endorsed somebody else. I won. And thanks, dude. As soon as we took the keys to the National Committee, I felt it. After being on the committee for 4 years and working with 2 different administrations, I felt it. It was cohesive. We have plans. You know, Angela's working on SWOT analysis, and everybody's contributing to these things that they want to do for the party. She's got me tasked with putting together an entire media program for the party now. We're going to start putting out passionate dance mott style media, you know, that gets people excited about our cause, not this boring like, oh, well, maybe wear a mask if, you know, it's going to offend somebody if you don't. And, you know, probably it's a good thing to get these vaccines that don't have a lot of safety and efficacy data because you don't want other people to get sick. It's like, no, we stand against these mandates. And we're gonna talk about that. And we're gonna stand against inflation and taxation that's hurting the middle class the most. We're gonna stand against the wars. No, we're not gonna put Ukrainian flags in the back of our car, man. I'm sorry. Not gonna do it. We're gonna talk about how this foreign policy in this country has, you know, contributed to millions of deaths around the world. And we're gonna be brave and unapologetic and brash about that. And so I'm very excited about the future of the Libertarian Party, but I'm also worried. I mean, it's really gonna be an ugly thing. I mean, these people they're gonna attack us. And as somebody, if you followed me for the last 5 years, you know that my own party has done this to me for 5 years. They've attacked my children. They went after my 75-year-old grandmother after my grandfather passed away. They literally groomed my 15-year-old daughter who was in a bad situation to go out and make a bad statement about me with money. They paid money to my child, who I got custody of 2 months later, and is very apologetic. And I told her, you know, sweetie, don't worry about it. I don't care. I understand. But these people are not good people in our own party, and they don't have any power. So what do you guys think is going to happen when we start taking state rep positions? When we start challenging gubernatorial candidates? You know, it's going to be ugly, and we have to all be ready to fight that stuff, man. Truly. So that's kind of the story of the Libertarian Party. That's the direction I think we're going in. You know, I think, you know, this milquetoast messaging that has done nothing for 51 years, it's not getting it done anymore. And now we have a party that's ready to be unabashedly and unapologetically libertarian. I'm very excited about it. So I don't want to speak for too long and take up too much of your Saturday morning, but I would like to if you guys got questions about the Libertarian Party, is there anybody with questions? You guys got hands or anything? I'd love to answer some. Yeah, would you like to come up to the mic and we can talk about what your fears and worries about the Libertarian Party are? I know it's Saturday morning. Probably you guys haven't even had breakfast yet, right?
In the 51 years, we have been focused on electoral politics.
I'm sorry, Mike. Can you turn that mic? It's on. No.
Better. For half a century, we have focused on electoral politics. We haven't done too good. Here in New Hampshire, we've made tremendous success. We have libertarian state representatives. They don't run as members of the Libertarian Party. So I think, at least here in New Hampshire, we need a different relationship between the local affiliate and the LNC, because given that we are making concrete progress on the ground, we need to be able to operate closely with other parties, which we can't right now.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great thing to talk about. Okay, so I hate the GOP, and let me tell you why I hate the GOP. Okay, I worked on Ron Paul's campaign in 2008. Ron Paul was, in my opinion, the last great statesman. I mean, this man is the absolute example of what a good person should be that went into politics. Okay, and I've met a lot of politicians around the country, and I can tell you 99.5% of the politicians that I've met are absolute sacks of shit. I mean, terrible people. They're not good people. And I'm not just talking that they have bad policies. I mean, they're bad people. Ron Paul was a great, great person. And I worked on his campaign, and his own party trashed him. His own party arrested delegates at their caucuses to keep them out. They changed the national convention rules so to screw with their delegates. I mean, this is a man that was growing steam like Bernie Sanders, right? So I left the Republican Party after the 2008 campaign, and Ron Paul endorsed me in 2020 for national chairman. I was the first intra-party candidate in the Libertarian Party to get a Ron Paul endorsement since 1988. So I'm not opposed to working with good Republicans. In fact, I'm running for State House in Iowa right now, District 44, and because the last 2 years I was down at the Capitol, the House Liberty Republicans, not the Grassley Republicans, we don't care about those guys, but the House Liberty Republicans that actually were steadfast on healthcare freedom, school choice in Iowa, these great policies, I worked with them. I went down and talked to them, and in fact, I talked to Jeff Shipley, who's a great guy. I love Jeff. He can be a little wacky sometimes, but he's a very, very smart, spiritual individual who has a lot of great things to say. And I talked with him, and I said, hey, man, you're a Rothbardian libertarian, dude. Why aren't you with the Libertarian Party in Iowa? You know, I just moved to Iowa in March of 2020. And he goes, why would I work with a party that trashes me, that doesn't come to the state capitol and do anything, ever, is not active almost outside of their own little sphere? Why would I work with them? I said, what if you had a state party that started doing those things? I'd think about it. So I started going down to the state capitol. I started rallying for healthcare freedom during COVID. I talked to state senators and House Republican reps, and we worked on, I helped, push them in the legislative direction to make sure that these mandates were considered unconstitutional. And Iowa almost never shut down. We had about a week and a half where we were like 50% restaurants. We had a mask mandate for about 15 days, and everything got legislated out, no mandates. And it was beautiful. So now, running for State House, the Republicans have declined to run anybody against me. I'm probably going to get the support of the GOP, well, the House Liberty Republicans. And I'm running against a Democrat who is a pharmacist that took money from Pfizer during his campaign and then pushed for vaccine mandates. So it's going to be an interesting race. And we're in a purple district where I don't have the stigma of the R next to my name. I can knock the doors, and I'll tell you, my district is full of pissed off mom groups, right? Who would have voted Democrat had they not pushed to vaccinate their children with something they don't trust. So I have a really good opportunity there because I worked with Republicans. So I'm not opposed to working with people who are good on issues, and I think the Mises Caucus, one of our three-pronged strategies, right, is initiative-based coalitions, as opposed to just electoral politics. And we want to focus more on the local and state level where we know libertarians can win, right? And instead of like putting all of our money into a presidential campaign that's not going to do anything for us except get us ballot access in a few states. But our presidential election is a 50-state media tour, man. That's it. And that's good for us if we have the right messenger. But if we have Bill Weld talking about gun control and endorsing Hillary on national television, it's no longer good for us. So we have to put the right people into the presidential election, sure, and let them go. Let them raise their own funds, let them go on their media tour, but man, we're gonna focus local and state now, which is something that the party has not done much of. And we're gonna work on initiative-based coalitions. We'll do it with Republicans or Democrats. And that's how we're gonna start to win, and that's how we're gonna start to get in favor. Because look, in politics, there's two things that bring people to the ballot box, man. Hope and change. Obama proved that, right? Hope and change. People want to know that your policies are going to enrich their community, man. And if we can't show them that our policies enrich their community, then we should just disband it as a party and start doing our own thing. So yeah, I think, working against people that are good on all the policies you care about is a bad idea. Truly, I believe that. So thank you. Yes, sir. I like the hat, it's nice.
Thank you. So I had a question just about, obviously we want to look forward away from inter-party politics and start, actually implementing the strategy, broadly speaking. But What comes to mind is like in 2008 when Jack Dorsey was ousted as the CEO of Twitter, they kind of let him hang around and behind the scenes be a little finger kind of guy until he got enough support to regain the position of CEO. So do we have any plans to make sure the Sarwarks aren't hanging around, garnering support behind the scenes to make sure that we maintain control of the party and not let it slip, not let the gains.
Buddy, the Sarwarks are hanging around ready to take control of the party, and I promise you. In fact, I was talking to my friend Elijah yesterday, and he talked to Nick Sarwark at the convention, and Nick had this. It's actually a really good analogy, but coming from him, it just sounds really smarmy. But he said that the Mises Caucus is like a kid who wants to drive the car, right? There's no gas in the car. And he doesn't like what's playing on the radio station. So he steals the car and starts driving up the street. He don't got no money for gas, but he's listening to what he wants to on the radio station. And he said, I'm just going to wait till he gets a couple miles down the road, breaks down. I'm going to come back in. I'm going to put money back into the car. I'm going to change the radio station back to where I want it. He's wrong, man. When I started with the Mises Caucus in 2017, we were 55 people in a Facebook group, dude. Okay? We're 10,000 or more strong now. Okay, we got 85 new lifetime members at the National Convention, all Mises Caucus. That's just at the convention. We have had a huge membership influx. In fact, I would not be surprised if we haven't doubled our membership by this time in the next 5 months. He doesn't have that kind of power, dude. He may have the entire weight of whatever federal government agency he works for behind him, but he's not gonna beat us, okay? We're ready, we're ready. Mr. Friedman, if you haven't read David Friedman's books, you definitely should. He's a wonderful individual.
You asked about concerns about the party, and I've expressed my concerns to you before, but I'll do it here. Sure. The previous administration saw the center and the left as basically good people they wanted to get along with and watered down libertarian doctrine accordingly. My worry is that the new administration will be making exactly the same mistake in the other direction, and you have just increased that worry, because what happened on January 6th was not a guided tour of Washington, D.C. It was a riot. Now, it was a riot on behalf of the losing side in the election, and so naturally the winning side in the election took the opportunity to come down on those people as hard as they could, but they were coming down on people who had done things that were in fact illegal. And the fact that you express it the way you do suggests that just as Sarawak and his people saw the people to the left of them as, well, they aren't quite libertarians, but they're basically sort of the right people, that you have precisely the same attitude to the right.
Those people are not libertarians, I'll just say. I know that.
No, I understand, but that you have the same attitude to the Trump people, not that they're libertarians, but that on the whole you want to believe the version of the facts that's sympathetic to them. And it seems to me that that suggests a real worry about the party drifting in the direction of not saying things that will offend the right and maybe saying some things designed to appeal to the right. And that's my worry, and I've told it to you before, but I might as well tell it to you now.
I don't sympathize with their cause as much as I don't sympathize with federal government buildings. And that's the truth. Listen, I was called a domestic terrorist on national television by John Brennan, okay? You were too, if you call yourself a libertarian. Okay, I'm not gonna go out of my way to defend federal government buildings. If people wanna riot at a federal government building, I'm not gonna step in front of them. I'm not gonna stop them. But what I saw, the footage that I saw there, was there some unrest? Sure. Was there some violence outside? Sure. Were those doors open purposely? Yes. And we know that. It's been proven. We've seen it on television. And I'm just not gonna defend the federal government for just about anything ever, including their buildings. So it's not that I'm sympathetic to them. It's not that I think that all their policies are great. Those people probably want to lock my friends in rape cages for smoking weed. You know what I mean? And they probably want to do all kinds of other bad shit that I don't agree with as well.
Sarawak could have said exactly the same thing about the people on the left he wanted to get along with.
Sure, and guess what? Hey, insurrection is back on the table for the left today, I promise you. I promise you. They're outright in the streets right now. I guarantee you Portland's burning tonight. tonight, okay? And they're gonna burn down Starbucks and Target and all these other businesses. They're not going after the federal government buildings. They're gonna go burn down adoption centers. Let that sink in.
I'm not sure that has anything to do with the question that I asked.
No, it does, because you know.
Sarawak knew that the people on the left were not libertarians, just as you know that the people on the right are not libertarians. Sure. But his instinct was to feel friendly to them and try to avoid offending them. And I am worried that your instinct, as suggested by the way you described the January 6 events, is to feel friendly to, you know they're not.
Do you see eye to eye with anybody on anything on the right?
On anything?
Yeah, on anything.
I'm sure there.
I'm sure you do too. I see eye to eye with things on people on the left too. Less so, but also eye to eye with people on the left. So, you know, we can't go into this saying, hey, we need to just go out and gun down the left and right. I mean, there are people that we can pull from those movements. I think it's less people than we can pull from the 61% of the population that didn't vote for a president in 2016. I think that's our people. I think those are the people that are jaded on the military-industrial complex and the insane taxes and all the bullshit that we deal with in this country as citizens every day. I think those are our people. I think they need to have an outlet where they feel comfortable and that it's going to be effective for their policies and their concerns and worries. But there's certainly people on the right that I agree with, and I'd like to have come over. I'd love to see Thomas Massey flip. I'd love to see that happen. You know, I liked it when Justin Amash flipped, and I think he's a lot less right than I agree with. You know, I see January 6th not as anything worse than what the left does every weekend anytime they disagree with something that's going on.
But if the left riots, as it sometimes does, and if those people get arrested, you would not say, well, they're obviously being oppressed, we'd better worry about this thing. You would react that when people riot and burn stuff, it's appropriate that they be arrested.
Sure, because those aren't federal government buildings. But that's not all. That's not all. Let me tell you, I know personally some people that were at January 6th that are not Trumpists, MAGA people, okay? Even one from Iowa who went and sat in prison without bail, being called a domestic terrorist and having all these federal government laws used against them to hold them in prison. He never even made it inside the Capitol, okay? Now, is there a difference there, sir, between my friend who was outside the Capitol protesting, never made it inside the Capitol, being arrested and held without bail, and somebody being arrested for burning down somebody's business? Do you think there's any kind of difference there?
There is indeed a difference.
There's a big difference there.
I still do not think that you are really, sorry, there is a difference, but I still think that you are trying to use rhetoric to avoid what seems to me to be the central issue, which is that I am at least concerned that your instincts are like Sarawak's instincts in the opposite direction.
My instincts are only, sir, to stand up for truth and justice in America.
That is a position I'm in favor of.
Thank you, sir.
Hello. I was at January 6th, and I'm an atheist, but I was around hundreds of thousands, tens of, I don't know, it was a huge number. Nothing but nice, kind people. And I left.
Did you mean to say Christians?
Christian,
Yeah.
religious.
You left that
whatever.
part out, but
Yeah.
I appreciate you being
I'm just saying
civil.
they were
atheist. Thank you.
kind, and I took off after the speech. The speech was mundane. There was no way it was vitriolic. That's complete bullshit. That is just a complete lie. But that a few knuckleheads went a little bit crazy to paint that as a riot when we're watching what's going on in Portland, and it's just amazing to me. And we just can't let the left say that over. I mean, I think they're winning with that argument, but it's completely false. And I do agree with you. I have so many Republican friends back home that I think are just pissed. We live in Michigan. I mean, Whitmer was a draconian bitch. And I mean, she needs to go, and I think she's going to win again, but I think you can pull a lot from the right this time.
Well, I had a conversation with two gentlemen last night about this at the Mises tent. I stayed up entirely too late, as I mentioned in the beginning, and I'm sorry, but I had a conversation with them about this last night. They live in New York, okay, And I had to make it clear that in New York, the Republican Party is never going to win again. We are far too divided in the United States for that to ever happen. As somebody who grew up and spent 30 years in California, in the Bay Area, a Republican is never again going to win in California. The last Republican we had, and I say it, Republican, Arnold Schwarzenegger running the country, okay? You think that was a Republican? That wasn't a Republican. We will never have a Republican in California again. That's just how it is. So you're hurting nobody in your party by not voting Republican in New York or Michigan or California. You know, you're bolstering a segment of the country that's pissed off at both parties by opting out of those and voting for a libertarian or running yourself as a libertarian and getting those votes and getting people to understand that, you know, oh, hey, our state's lost to the Democrats. The Republicans are fading away in these states, and we can be a real, true option for the people who aren't voting because they're done with those two people. So, I mean, that's how I view it, and I think that, you know, nothing has gotten better in my lifetime under either Democrats or Republicans. It's always gone one way for me, whether it's taxes, the warfare state, you know, now inflation, spending. GOP spends more than the Democrats do on most cases. So it's like, what do we do? Do we keep hanging out with these parties that hate liberty and saying, hey, we can make this party about liberty? Or do we just take over the party that was already about liberty and make it more liberty-based and start to actually make a fight in the country? I mean, that was what my options were, and I saw it clearly that this was the only option for me. So thank you for the question. Yes, sir.
So I was an LP member all throughout. I still am today, but through the last administration, watched them cozy up to DC, the people who oppress us.
I apologize.
And then I lived in Minneapolis and watched these people burn down my houses, our friends' houses, our businesses, everything else, to even compare that to January 6th, where they defied those people's cathedral, just enrages me. Right. And I am so glad to have someone who will stand up for the regular people who had all that stuff destroyed rather than government fucking buildings.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Truly, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I do have a question too, but just quickly in response to Mr. Friedman's question, what I would say is that the previous LP leadership, the Sarwark leadership, they essentially just pandered to everything that the U.S. empire stands for, which is everything that we stand against. And your current leadership that we have in the LP right now is not afraid to stand against that, whereas they just sided with it.
Right.
Which is all that is, you know, evil in this world. My question is totally unrelated to that, and it is, since you've been tasked with dealing with the media for LP National, what role, if any, do you see for shit posting?
Oh, dude, don't get me wrong. Shit posting has a lot to do with culture, right? And so I've watched. Listen, Donald Trump got shit posted into the White House. Yeah. That's the truth of the matter, dude. People were brash and unapologetic and literally got people excited by shit posting. So I see a big role in shit posters, dude. And you already know that. I'm an old school member of Tower Power Hour, guys, okay? I honeypotted them into starting their podcast. But no, I think it has its place. I think we need an army of meme trolls, dude. It's a new era in the digital age, and that's how people do things, man. We have to have an army. And I'll tell you, in 2016, I did campaign for Gary Johnson in 2016, I know. But that was because I wasn't going to opt into the Donald Trump and Hillary fight. I didn't want to be part of that. And we started a group called the Libertarian Troll Mercenaries. And this was before I actually was like involved in the party or anything. And it started out as a group of 4 or 5 dudes that were like in a private group going, all right, what Trump groups can we troll? What Hillary groups can we troll? Let's do this. You know, try and pull people over to our side by trolling them. It started working. And then all of a sudden we had like this group of like 5,000 libertarian mercenary trolls. And it was working. It worked. I watched it work in real time. And in fact, you know, I'd say that we had more to do with Gary Johnson getting those numbers than Nick Sarwark did. But hey, that's just me. Yes, sir.
Josh, you said you're from California. I'm from Syracuse, New York. We're as dominated by the Democrats as Reno was by Mesas. So I wondered if you had any advice or encouragement for those of us living in exile.
I'm sorry, you were nominated as what?
I was just saying, I'm in Syracuse, New York, and we're dominated by the Democrats just as badly as the Reno was dominated by Mises, right?
I like that, yeah.
So I just wondered if you have any advice for those of us living in exile.
Move. Listen, I sat in California for way longer than I should have. And it's hard to leave because it's a beautiful state. We got the mountains, we got the redwood forest. You don't got the redwood forest anywhere else. You got these beautiful oceans. You got great big cities that have all kinds of fun shit to do. I mean, it's a great state, especially when I was a kid. But it's unlivable. It's unlivable. And let me tell you, I moved to Iowa in March of 2020. Okay, I was renting a bedroom in California. I was making $30 an hour, renting a bedroom in California for $1,200 a month. A bedroom. I moved to Iowa, and I'm paying $1,700 a month for a 2,400 square foot, 4-bedroom home on a quarter acre of land. That's a big difference. And there's a reason for that. It's because they don't have these shitty politicians that are making the worst policies possible all the time. There are some decent politicians left there that actually fight for these things. We have homeschooling laws in California or in Iowa where we don't have to tell the government we're homeschooling at all. We can just homeschool. And then when we decide our kid is ready to graduate, we just tell the school board, hey, we need a diploma. It's great. We have healthcare freedom. It's really good. It's a good place to live. You're not going to ever have that in New York again, man. It's gone. It's unfortunate to say, but it's gone. And that's why the party and our social media now is talking about national divorce, right? Because we can't live with those people. It's impossible to live with those people. Democracy has been nothing but trash for a long time. And those people are two wolves arguing over what's for dinner with the sheep, right? I mean, that's what it is now. And they're always going to fall on the side of the media, the status quo, the whatever narrative is being pushed by the government. And that's it. It's time to leave the coast, man. Unless Florida, I guess, but. Or, go to New Hampshire. No, I'm saying leave the coast unless it's Florida, but go to New Hampshire. Yeah, I agree. And the National Party's talking about the Free State Project now. We see it. We see the utility in coalescing around common values, man. It's important. I wish maybe you guys would have done it in Rhode Island. There's way less people there, but hey, it's beautiful out here, and so I get it. So it's, I think that's a great thing to move. I think, if we weren't tied to Iowa for 14 years, we'd be in New Hampshire, because the more people you can get here, the better your policies are going to get. And I appreciate you guys starting to give the middle finger to the federal government. So thank you for that. You got to leave, man. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm sorry, I kind of have laryngitis. I'm kind of new to this, but I have to echo David Friedman that your language kind of scares me.
Sure.
Like I've heard I need a bulletproof vest. I heard there's mercenaries. I've heard we need to go to war. Like, I don't think that's the Libertarian Party that I want. I don't want anger. I don't want threats. People who work in federal buildings are people with families, so I may not respect the federal building, but I respect the people who live in it, and I feel like there's almost an endorsement of disrespecting them and sacrificing their safety just because they happen to be in a federal building. I don't want anger.
I want to be clear that the bulletproof vest comment was because the government's probably going to come after you if you become effective. It wasn't because I want to storm buildings and kill social workers.
But there's a lot of war language woven into this, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for change peacefully and effectively.
What I would like to, my mom calls herself a libertarian. I get it. I understand. I do. But as political leaders, when we become political leaders in this country, it's gonna be ugly, because we're trying to dismantle a system that empowers these people, and nobody wants to lose their power.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that going to the lowest common denominator is a false victory. It's like, okay, you won, but you used the bad tactics the other people were using.
The what? I'm sorry.
The bad tactics the other people were using. They're still bad if we use them.
Oh, I'm not trying to, well, there's a couple that I'd like to lock in a cage, I guess, but I'm not calling for armed insurrection. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, I want to make this clear as possible. I'm saying that when we become effective in this country with our policies, that they're going to come after us. It is going to happen, no matter how much of a libertarian you are, no matter how much you want to use this, pretty language, and they are going to come after you. I know, because my own party did it to me. And I'm telling you, it was ugly. I almost quit 25 times. They are going to come after you. And whether that's violence or ending your bank account like we've seen in Canada, or taking away your home, or taking away your job, or smearing you in the media, it's going to happen. Taking your kids, it's going to happen. And we have to be prepared for that. We can't, as much as I want to sit around and be like, it's all going to be rainbows. We're just going to take over the federal government. It's going to be ugly. And I'm scared too. It worries me. I have 7 kids at home. I don't want it to become that. But the federal government, they'll napalm your children for resources. It's a pretty gross organization, and so we have to be ready to stand up to that, and it's a big thing. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you, honestly. Or worry you. I didn't mean to worry you. Yes, sir.
Hello, Mr. Smith.
Hello, Mr. Smots.
I don't remember what.
Round of applause for Dan Smots. You guys know Dan Smots? He's the real MVP here.
Thank you. And I think I just got laryngitis from this mic or something, whatever she said she had. But it's fine, we share. Now, I'm going to say something very controversial here at Libertarian Porkfest.
Very shocked.
I, for one, don't trust politicians. And you, sir, are now one. So if I'm going to, endorse somebody or give them my vote or anything like that, I'm going to hold my politicians accountable. So I have to hold you accountable for things that you guys said before going into office. You and Angela said Michael Malice was going to get the Twitter keys. And I just want to know. I'm holding you accountable, sir. Thank you.
Well, we did do the next best thing, and we gave the Twitter to Dave Smith, so that's good. But there is a real push to have Michael Malice Fridays. So there's an actual push for that now, and I'd love to see it, man. The guy's the perfect troll, the best troll. And really, we watched Robbie the Fire Bernstein roll around here as a cop, making satire. Sometimes you got to just satire the foundation of the government, man. It's really important, I don't know that I'd take it as far as Vermin, but.
Just one comment.
Yes,
JFK sir. Needed a bulletproof and a helmet.
Yeah. Any more? Yes, sir. You used to be on the LNC, so I
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I was there, and I witnessed a lot of the sandbagging and the let's stay in our little box. So, you just mentioned about that they're going to come after you, and you don't have to say it here, but I think as part of your strategic planning, you need to know your defensive action. Like, what's your counter when they come after you, either political realm or personally. I just think it doesn't have to be public right now, but really think about okay, we do this, they push back. You guys got to be thinking, the chess master 3 moves ahead. So
it's strategic planning.
Yeah, but really, if you're convinced they're going to come after you, make your plan now and not the last second when they're storming you or defiling you on public media and all that other stuff.
Well, I think we have an LNC now that's setting up those strategic plans, and we have great programs. I don't talk about it a lot. I probably should talk about it more, but we had the Frontier Project, if you're familiar. That's been effective in Wyoming, and we've gotten state legislators elected there. Of course, we've had to pump a ton of money into that to get these targeted races, but that's kind of the strategic plan is to really laser focus and find these races that we can win, and where we know they can't stop us, and either they're going to have to spend a lot of money to beat us and fail somewhere else, or we're going to win, and so. That's the plan for now. Like I said, Angela put out a SWOT analysis. The whole team's working on all the stuff that we need strategically, and we're kind of like a organized, cohesive board now. So that's all stuff we're working on, man. But my big focus is going to be the media and putting out, propaganda that is gonna actually excite people and get people excited for our policies, man. Because it's been real boring for a long time. But we're gonna make libertarianism cool again, man. So, yes, sir.
Yeah, unless I'm mistaken, you seem to believe that progressives are more of a threat to libertarians than other political groups. Can you explain why?
Yeah. Man, okay, so I live in Iowa, right? And weed is still illegal there. And that's the Republicans doing, okay? And that sucks. It's a really terrible thing. But every year, the Democrats put forth a bill to take away homeschooling. Okay? And every year, they put forth some kind of bill for more medical tyranny and more taxes. And let me tell you, Iowa's not great on property tax, like the 5th highest property tax in the country. Okay? And that's the Democrats put forth that bill. Of course, it finds bipartisan support for some reason. And I am a big proponent. I do say a lot, you know, all the worst shit that we have in this country always finds bipartisan support. Always. The warfare state, taxes, red flag laws now. You know, we saw 15 Republicans vote for red flag laws. It's one of the reasons why I'm glad I'm not a Republican anymore. But at the end of the day, all the shit that's going to affect my life directly, the worst, it always comes from the progressives. It's always from the progressives. I'm talking like take my kids out of my home for 8 hours a day shit, or force me to take a vaccine shit. It's not good, you know, and I see that as more of a threat to my everyday life than not letting me legally smoke weed, because let's face it, I grew up illegally smoking weed my whole life. You know what I mean? And in fact, on the West Coast, where weed is legal, all they've done is bolster the black market, because their weed is super expensive. They put a 37% excise tax on it right at the beginning. So now, weed is much cheaper from the 18-year-old down the street, you know, and it's better weed, and I don't got to give money to the government, and so now it's like, everyone's like, well, it's legal, so I can legally hold weed. So everyone's buying weed, they're just not buying it at the pot shop, you know, and so it sucks, but at the end of the day, like I said, the things that affect most of our lives every day, all the bad policy is always crafted by the Democrats, man. So, yes, sir.
Hey, Josh, you got 2 minutes, by the way.
Okay.
Besides just a tweet or anything, is there any plans to help the Free State Project, like in any other ways besides like promoting it with tweets? Because Free State Project, more than anything else, has actually achieved liberty in ways that nothing else has even come close. So is there any plans in the work to help the Free State Project besides promoting it? Like
I mean, so I'm sure that something's going to pop up on the SWOT analysis. I'm sure of that. I don't know. I unfortunately don't live in the Free State. But we do have a Free Stater on the LNC now. You know, Robley Hall is yeah, he's on the LNC. He's a great guy. So I'd imagine that we can craft all kinds of things, you know, and do all kinds of things. I would love to see more people move to New Hampshire. I would love to come back to Pork Fest with my kids next year and see the size of this thing doubled. You might need a bigger campsite, but, you know, it'd be pretty cool. I couldn't tell you. I don't think anything's been crafted yet. So, but yeah. Is there any more questions before I go? We love you, buddy. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.